Dowsing is an ancient and honorable art. The first historical references to dowsing have been dated back 8,000 years. It has been known to have been used in Greece and Samaria to locate silver and copper deposits. On tomb walls in Egypt exist pictographs of people using dowsing devices, which is also commonly referred to as divining. Later, in the 17 and 1800s, dowsing became very popular in the European countries. It was used primarily to discover underground water sources. European immigrants brought this technique with them when they settled the colonies of America. People continued to douse for water as they crossed the country and settled in the West. Hi, I'm Bill Cook, and for the next several minutes, Frank Jordan and I will demonstrate the aspects and uses of the super sensor dowsing rod. It is a tool that, if used properly, can yield wonderful results. You may be familiar with the term water witching. The term originated from the use of the witch hazel branch, which was chosen because of its symmetrical fork. The term has really given an improper implication to dowsing as a whole.
Dowsing is a purely natural ability that we all have. Anyone who has the ability to step back and disassociate from the conscious mind can dowse. Dowsing is an expression of the subconscious, and the dowsing tool is simply an implement to communicate with the subconscious mind. For example, if I wanted to locate something at a distance, I'd simply hold my dowsing rod in this manner and ask for it, and it would point directly to it. That is not a conscious act. I simply focus on my mind on what I want, and it happens. That's how dowsing works. It's that simple. And it's incredible, all the various things that dowsing can be used for. My personal introduction to dowsing came in Eastern Oregon on a cattle ranch in 1943. I was 9 years old at the time, and the REA had just brought power to our ranch for the first time and made it possible to have a pump on the ranch, an electric pump. So my dad was looking for a water well. He was dowsing out in the yard, the front yard, looking for a good place to drill a well. And this is something he had learned from his father, who had learned from his father on back in history, was how to use a willow stick to find water. It is incredibly important that because of so much labor is involved in hand digging a well, it is important that they dig in the right place. And that's what dowsing did for them. It gave an indication not only of where the water vein was, but how deep did they have to go to find it. And I become very intrigued with that. And that led to an intense study of dowsing for the next 40 years. And what I've discovered is that the subconscious mind is the active functional force in dowsing. The subconscious being aware of everything that's out there. And the dowsing rod is simply a tool for communicating with the subconscious mind. What I used the dowsing rods for, primarily when I was on the ranch, was locate lost animals or lost machinery, pieces of equipment, tools, things of that nature. And I did use it for deer and elk hunting very successfully. For about 15 years I guided hunters, in fact, and got so incredibly perfect in using these things that we wouldn't leave camp without dowsing first to locate where the animal was, and could even informational douse to tell how big he was, or if it was the one we wanted that day.
Among the dowsing rods available today, the super sensor is the only rod that contains a pointer that can actually be balanced. Now, this is a major advantage in map dowsing when you're dealing with subtle and very sensitive responses. The sensitivity comes from the fact that it operates against Teflon bearings, so there is virtually no resistance. This enables the super sensor to respond to your subconscious thought. It also enables you to operate the rod in adverse conditions. Wind, rain, and snow will not affect the sensitivity if it's balanced correctly. Another feature of the super sensor is its specially designed witness chamber. Not only does this help give it balance, but it can also be used to hold a sample of whatever it is you seek, to help focus the subconscious. Frank teaches courses in the art of dowsing and has dowsed professionally for police departments, locating everything from bodies to downed aircraft. Other dowsers have worked for oil companies, locating drill sites for oil wells, water veins for industrial companies, and even in Vietnam to locate underground tunnels and landmines. You know, there's nothing you can't find if you focus your mind on it.
I can literally think about anything, and it will respond to it. At this moment, I'm thinking about the closest bull elk to me right now. It turned over to Julia Davis Park, right over there. And I don't have to think about that. I've so programmed myself. My subconscious mind automatically responds and does exactly what I tell it to.
Before you begin dowsing, it's necessary to be in the right frame of mind. You need to step back out of your conscious mind and into an expanded consciousness that allows your subconscious to communicate with you. You do this by taking a long, deep breath and moving back within yourself. Then relaxing the breath, letting go, and stepping back from the conscious mind. Once you've attained a serene, calm state and are avoiding preconception, you'll get good, positive responses from the subconscious through the dowsing rod. To pattern the subconscious mind to what you want to find, you first train yourself by locating known objects. For example, say I want to find the camera that's sitting across from me. I simply focus my mind on it, and the subconscious responds by pointing the rod. The supersensor responds to minute muscle movements in the wrist. The movement is so small, in fact, that you can't even detect it with the eye. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can maximize your sensitivity.
The first thing to do is make the rod work for you, either by moving it in this manner, asking it to lock on something, or standing up and rotating your body around while you hold it very firmly. You want to hold the rod firmly and yet not tight, just a firm grip, so that when you rotate around, it will lock. The muscles of the hand can operate and will lock on what it is you're seeking. I'd like to say the only thing that can interfere with getting good, reliable answers from a dowsing rod is preconception. If you preconceive the answer or have expectations, that is the answer you'll get, because the conscious mind very actively overrides the subconscious. That's why we take the breath, the indrawn breath, is to release, to step out of the conscious mind back into the subconscious.
When informational dowsing, you will be seeking yes and no responses. To program yourself for a yes response, point the tip down to gain control. Then ask questions for which you know the answer to be yes. The rod will respond by pointing to the right. For example, am I holding a supersensor? Yes. Am I watching a training video? Yes. Always shake the rod after each question. This tells the subconscious that you're ready to seek something new. Now, to program yourself for no responses, ask things to which you already know the answer to be no. The rod will respond by rotating to the left. Is my name Elmer Fudd? No. Am I flying a jet plane? No. Now stop the tape and practice yes and no responses by asking things you already know the answer to.
One word of warning, when you're asking informational questions, never ask questions of a personal nature. For one thing, if you preconceive, if you ask a question of a very sensitive emotional nature, such as, is my wife stepping out on me, that is a preconception, or you would not have asked the question in the first place. And you'll probably get a yes answer, even though she may not be. But be very careful about asking whether your mother's going to die next week, or even programming the date of when she would die. Don't do things of that nature. If you must have information of that type, have someone else douse the question for you. That way you're not getting a biased or a prejudiced or a preconceived answer. The next thing we want to examine is directional dowsing. Now, program yourself by asking the rod to point at things that you can see. After you do this, the subconscious gets the idea of what it is you're asking. Then when you ask for things you can't see, for example, I'm asking for a tree that I know of is outside, it'll point directly to that tree. Now when I extrapolate on out and ask for something that I don't know where the location is outside, for example, I want to know where a tree where there's a squirrel nest outside. The subconscious reaches out and immediately responds. I want to know where the closest dog is in the neighborhood at this time. The closest dog in the neighborhood. And I'm not even thinking about that rod response. I'm not even thinking about the rod at all. It just does it automatically. And that comes from disassociation. And this is a very important thing, is to disassociate from the rod as you do this. Cast your mind out in that open, clear state, asking totally unconceived, preconceived answers. And you'll get good, positive responses.
In programming your subconscious for the unknown things, you'll receive the same answers and in the same manner, right for yes and left for no. Practice by asking questions for which you do not know the answer to. And be very literal in your questions. Ask exactly what you want the answer to, like, is the price of orange juice going to change next week? Or is the price of gasoline going to go up next month? Now stop this tape and practice asking the unknown answers. One very important thing is to trust the first answer you get. Your first response will usually be your best. Now, if you ask the same questions or variations on the same questions again and again, you will begin to preconceive, and your conscious mind will override your subconscious mind. One of the most effective uses of the supersensor is map dowsing. You can project over a large area and then focus it down onto a map. And with the use of a pointer, you can receive sensitive, reliable responses. Using maps, people have located water veins, oil wells, mineral deposits, missing people, animals, all kinds of things. Why, sportsmen have located deer and elk simply by directional dowsing.
Another way of locating deer elk, for example, if I was in Cassia County in southern Idaho, is I could ask for the greatest concentration of elk in that region at this time. First of all, I would ask, are there any elk in that region? No. So I'll ask, are there deer in this region at this time? I get a yes response. So I'm going to ask for the greatest concentration of deer and elk, simply pass the rod along the edge like this, and it will lock. Now I have a line. Now I come back across and get a cross line. And it's in the general low-lying area of Cassie County, which is the winter feeding grounds of deer and elk in that area. Now, if I wanted to pinpoint it down even closer, I could take a pointer and point to any one of those townships, asking for the greatest concentration of deer and elk. I'm getting a yes response in that area that I got the cross lines on. If I go to the high mountain regions, I get an immediate no response. That would be logical at this time of year. Here in the low-lying regions, I'm getting yes responses again. Now this can also be used for mineral dowsing. If I wanted to dowse for minerals in the area of the Big Wood River near Sun Valley in Idaho, what I would do is ask for the greatest concentration of undiscovered gold or silver in that general region. And I come across a map like this. I get a lock and I notice which string of sections that lock was on. Then I come back across and get a lock in this region. Now that gives me the general area of general location, and now I can begin to pinpoint exactly where the greatest undiscovered concentration of gold or silver is in that area. I simply ask, is it in this section? Is it in this section? Yes. I got a yes response. Now by quartering that down, I can go down to 160 acres. Is it in this section? No. Is it in this section? Quarter section? Yes. Now I can quarter that down again. Is it in this 40 acres? No. Is it in this 40 acres? Yes. By quartering down, you can actually get to the point where you can put your pointer exactly on what it is you're looking for, whether it be a deer, an elk, a gold or silver deposit, a downed airplane, or a missing person. It doesn't matter. The subconscious knows. Another interesting use for dowsing rod is locating downed aircraft. I've done this frequently. What I ask for is a general flight plan of the aircraft. And using this rod, asking for the general flight plan, then I ask exactly what path did that airplane take. See, it varied from the flight plan that much. Now we have the plane is down on that exact transit. Now we come across asking for the exact point of that downed aircraft. I get a lock right in this region. Then I take a pointer. I have the general location, which is probably 40 miles from the expected location. I come back and start pinpointing it. Is the downed airplane I'm seeking in this area? No. Is it in this area? Yes. Is it in this area? Yes. I get a response in this area. By quartering down, I come out exactly where it is. I actually had this happen. We knew the general area where the plane went down, but it went in under the snow. But by dowsing, we were able to locate the exact, pinpoint the exact location. And although we couldn't find it because of the snow, the deep snow, the following spring it was exactly where I said it was. To find water using an L rod of this nature, I would simply walk along, and when I crossed the vein, the L rod would point backward, or a circle like that, indicating that I had come to the location where the water is. If I wanted to locate water on a map of this nature, I would ask, what is the greatest concentration, greatest potential of finding irrigation water on this map? I could come across this way, get a lock, and then pinpoint by quartering down exactly where the greatest concentration of irrigation water is. Then I could go to the area or get a larger scale map. Working off of a map, I could pinpoint exactly the place to drill. Then, informationally, I could ask the depth of that water. At this point, on this map, at this time, I want to know the depth of the water, effective irrigation water. Is it 50, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 510, 20, 30, 40, 50? About 550 feet is where I would drill at this point. I want to know how much water I could expect. Would I get 50, 100, 150, 200, 300, 400? I get 420, 40, 60. I could expect 460 gallons per minute from that site at that depth.
In the past, dowsing was used out of necessity to find underground water. In modern times, however, it's used mainly as a source of recreation. Now, no matter what you use the super sensor for, there are certain things that need mentioning. Here's Frank to explain some do's and don'ts when you are dowsing.
Practice a lot. The more you use your dowsing rods, the more your subconscious mind will learn to cooperate with you. And the more effective, the more efficient, the more exact you'll be. Trust your information. Your first response is usually the best. Let your kids play with it. Kids are natural dowsers. Some of the most wonderful dowsers I've seen are kids 9, 10, 12 years old. They're naturally instinctive. No one has told them they can't do it. Be patient and keep trying. Associate with other dowsers. Trade information. Get feedback. Try to figure out what your mistakes are. That's the only time you should use the conscious mind in dowsing, is when you make a mistake, try to figure out what really happened. Continue to learn. It opens your intuitive channels. Continue to practice. Some don'ts in dowsing. Don't ask personal questions. If you preconceive that your wife stepped out with another man, for example, the conscious mind will override the subconscious, and the dowsing rod will agree with you. Don't keep on asking the same question. The first response is usually the best. If you keep on asking again and again and again, the conscious mind will begin to figure out the answers, and that's the response you'll get. Don't let small kids play with the rod. The swinging action of the rod can't injure them. Don't be greedy. Greed overrides the subconscious. Take what you're asked for, take what you get, and be satisfied with it.
Now that you've learned how to use your super sensor, you should get good, reliable responses from your dowsing rod. Always remember to use it in the proper manner and to trust your first responses. But equally important, remember to have fun and enjoy your super sensor.